Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to go over my Hunt Showdown settings, focusing more on my sensitivity, but there still might be some settings that you haven't experimented with before that I'll show you in this video that you might find helpful. And I've been getting this question a lot more often in the YouTube comments and over on my TikTok. So we're going to go ahead and dive into my settings and I'll explain kind of why they are the way that they are. And hopefully this can help you if you're having similar issues that I had when I first started playing Hunt with your aim and, trying to find your sensitivity that works for you, or if you're just generally trying to improve your aim and you've already been playing Hunt for a while, this can help you as well. So very briefly, let me just add my background as a Hunt player in case you're asking yourself, why should I trust your take on setting Cyclone? Which I think is something that's reasonable to ask. So I started playing Hunt on day one of release on PS4 back in early 2020 and have played ever since until, current day on my PS5 now. I have 3,000 hours on console and about 500 hours on PC. I have played on both platforms, but obviously mainly on console. That's about 145 days of playing Hunt 24/7. I have never put that much time into a game before. And I also platinumed Hunt on PS4 back in 2021. I'm Prestige 100, level 100. I have a 2.36 KDA with 10,500 kills, about 6,000 deaths, and 3,500-ish assists, while basically having that KDA as a more aggressive player. I use all sorts of weapons from meta, I kind of said that weird, to shotguns, to naked runs, to pistols only, like challenges, and staying in matches and fighting even when I'm missing health. I don't really like to just leave the match just because I'm missing a chunk of health, or even several chunks of health. And if you didn't notice, kind of as like a small flex, I do actually have the bad hand and the union suit as well. I use the Gunslinger control scheme, and I always have. I never liked the idea of having to press an extra button to ADS, and I always like my gun being ready to fire in case someone surprises me around a corner or around a doorway and something like that. The main advantage of the Hunter scheme is that you can use bayonets and claw variants and riposts much easier because you just have to press R2 or the shooting button typically when you're in the lowered state to melee people, and in Gunslinger you have to use the R3 button, so pushing the analog stick in to be able to melee with your bayonet or a riposte or a talon variant, and that can become very tricky when chasing people because you have to obviously aim and release your melee at the same time. And a while ago they added the option to hold triangle or Y to lower your gun while playing in the Gunslinger scheme, which used to be an advantage for the Hunter scheme because when you're in the lowered state you can actually go all the way up against walls and peek through cracks or windows, and with Gunslinger your gun would typically clip through the wall and people could see the tip of your gun and essentially just wall bang you. Now while in the lowered state, my horizontal sense is 0.55 and my vertical sense is 0.40, and my aim boost strength is 4.5, aim boost delay is 0, and aim boost ramp time is 0.1. And yes, my sensitivity values are extremely slow, and that's because whenever I was first playing Hunt, I was always over adjusting my aim, such as when I was trying to flick towards somebody very quickly, I was always going past them, and then whenever I was trying to lead my shots, I just always felt like I was leading way too much because my sensitivity was too fast. So I just slowed it down by a couple of notches, and if I kept feeling like it was doing the same thing, I kept slowing it down, and that's how I eventually got to these values. But I utilized the aim boost, or what used to be called turning extra strength, and we'll get into that later down in some of the other settings. But the common theme you will see here is my vertical sense will always be just a tad slower than my horizontal sense, because for the most part you should already be aiming where hunters' torsos and heads should be when walking around, or at least when you're approaching areas where hunters are or where they're going to be, like such as heading towards gunshots or maybe where you heard a gunfight going on previously. So you shouldn't have to adjust your aim up and down as much as you should compared to adjusting your aim when leading a shot when someone's running or strafing in front of you, or needing to 180 when you get around a corner because you're getting chased, or simply to just center your screen because you saw something move in your peripheral. My shoulder aim or my hip fire horizontal sensitivity is 0.5 and the vertical sense is 0.45 with the same like aim boost settings as the lowered state, and my ADS sensitivities are 0.45 for the horizontal and 0.35 for the vertical sensitivity, and the aim boost is turned down to 3 and the ramp time stayed at 0.1. When it comes to any of the scope sensitivities, they're all at default, except I did experiment one time with trying to use scopes and I turned the sensitivity down to see if I'd like it any better, and I just don't really like the scopes on console. I just never really liked it, and I just always preferred to have the iron sight. And the only exception to this is I really love the label aperture, but the setting for the aperture sight is still just at default. So I'm not going to dive into aim assist too much. I currently play with it off. I've played with it on before, but I've played a lot of my hours with it off. Vibration is toggled on, sprinting behavior is toggled on, and the inner dead zones for both my sticks are at 0.1 because I do have a little bit of stick drift with my controllers. Now, going into the aim input curve and the aim boost threshold, these are two of the main things that affect the other three aim boost settings in the other ADS and shoulder and lowered sensitivities. Now, I play with linear. This, when the whole new aim boost got introduced, the linear is what a lot of people were recommending for people that were used to how the old turning extra strength felt, and I personally agreed with a lot of the recommendations, so I just went with this and never experimented with the other ones because they just never felt right, because I've had so many hours with the old setting essentially. And the aim boost threshold is at 90%. So that number is the percentage of basically how far the analog stick has to travel before the aim boost is introduced into your aim, or before it ramps up your aim with whatever your settings are. So pretty much my aim is set, or the aim boost is set to where I have to hit the stick all the way to the edge of the range of motion of the controller to then have that ramp in speed so that I can make those quicker, snappier adjustments and flick and stuff like that. And these are all the miscellaneous settings, and the only one I really want to mention that I think not a lot of people have experimented with or used or even talk about is the auto interact feature. So the auto interact setting allows you to be able to hold square or X if you're on Xbox and just be able to run by ammo boxes lined up at a supply cart and just hit all of them while moving, and you don't have to sit there and stand in front of it, wait for the prompt, and hit square for each thing you're trying to loot. You can loot the toolbox and the 3 different ammo boxes all at once, or not all at once, but at least just be able to run by them, and you'll be able to loot all of them as you run by, which I find extremely helpful. And especially when I'm recovering from a fight and I just need to loot everything, I don't have to worry about waiting for all the prompts. I can just run by and go ahead and head to the bounty or head wherever else I need to go. Now, these are the HUD settings, and these are all going to vary from person to person, but the main thing I want to focus on is the highlight interactable objects, and this is going to be bigger for people that are newer to Hunt, but you want to exclude doors and windows, and the default setting I believe is all. What that does is when it's on default, it's going to pulse these like white lines outlining the doors and like the shutters on windows, letting you know you can interact with them, but it makes it significantly harder to actually see through and peek through the shutters or the like little cracks on doors when they're not like barricaded. So when you exclude the doors and windows, it gets rid of that white pulsing line, making it much easier to get those like crazy cheeky angles and lines of sight that you would kind of get blocked by with those pulsing annoying lines. So we've gone through all these settings. Now, how do you put this into practice? How do you test things out to see if they feel good and if you're going to like the changes that you've made? So Obviously we have the shooting range, which was added for kind of those kind of purposes, to practice and warm up and get a feel for changing settings. But I honestly think what's even better is just taking a silenced Federley or Winfield and a silenced Nagant and going into a bounty hunt match and just shooting all of the mob around you, whether it's armoreds, hives, grunts, because even though they're not obviously real hunters and they're not going to move quite like real hunters, they are still moving, targets to shoot at, to focus on a little bit of lead if they're twisting or turning, or if they're in the middle of just walking very slow. You still have to put a little bit more effort into shooting them than you do the dummies in the shooting range, in my opinion. So I would definitely do that, and that's what I did when I was learning my sensitivities and just also trying to get better at aiming and hunt, was just constantly shooting all the mob around me, and then I would hit a supply cart before I would go fight actual hunters at the boss layer and play the match out. And that's going to wrap up today's video about my Hunt Showdown sensitivity settings, and some tips and tricks with some other settings along the way. And please let me know if this video helped you. I'd really love to talk to you guys down in the comments and figure out what kind of sensitivities that you guys run. Let me know how you maybe changed your settings after watching this video. Let me know if you tried my settings, and let me know how that went for you. I'm super curious and want to know, and give me as much feedback on this video as possible. I really try to put a lot of work into this one for you guys. And please like, subscribe, share this with all your friends that also play Hunt, specifically for console. And also, you can join the Discord. I don't really talk about my Discord too much, but there's plenty of other people in there, so if you're trying to find more hunters to play with, or just talk about more hunt stuff and talk to me more directly, I'm a lot more active in my Discord. And also, most importantly, stay safe in the Bayou.